Welcome back to Dad's on a Budget Vinyl. My name is Mark. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out, or in this case, today just sitting on the floor talking about records and what they mean to us. And today I want to talk about Al Stewart. In 1977, I told you guys in a previous video I bought my first vinyl, which was Neil Diamond's Love at the Greek. It was brand new. That's probably why I bought it. I walked into the record store. There it was, bright and shiny, and I snagged it. And I wasn't even a big Neil Diamond fan yet. The second record that I bought was Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick. And so, right off the bat, now this is after I had discovered that record collection in the closet that had the Beatles records and the Steppenwolf and the Stones and the Moody Blues and stuff. So I had a decent little thing going, but those are the first two records that I bought. That summer, a song came out. They played it over the AM radio in my mom's little car, and it just intrigued me from the very beginning. I was sucked in. And that song was Al Stewart's Year of the Cat. Looking back, I don't think I really knew how to feel about it because it wasn't very rock and roll. It wasn't folk. It wasn't singer-songwriter per se. There was just something different about it. The imagery that the song created, it mentioned people that I didn't know anything about, but they still intrigued me, like Bogart and Peter Lorre and, watercolors and all these different things that I thought were so cool. Brilliant guitar solo, brilliant sax solo, and you couldn't really pigeonhole it. There was nothing else like it. And it drew me into the world of Al Stewart. And I'm not sure, what the fourth, fifth, and sixth records were, but I know that number 3 was Year of the Cat. So today, I want to talk for a moment about 5 Al Stewart records. I have to say that there for a while, man, I thought that he hung the sun, the moon, and the stars. And he had some of the few records that I could play in my house that, my mom wouldn't yell upstairs, Mark, turn that down. She liked Al Stewart almost as much as I did. Al Stewart has a brilliant and interesting musical story going way, way back. He's got a great story where he went, he's from Scotland, and the Beatles came to his little town, and he had gone to the club to see them. And of course, back then, when you played, your band played 2 or 3 sets at least. And so they were there for the first set. And the second set, him and his buddy talked themselves into portraying themselves as representatives for the Rickenbacker Guitar Company, and were granted permission to go back stage and meet with John Lennon. And that whole story is fantastic. He shared a flat, or didn't share a flat, but right next door to him in the next flat was Paul Simon, very, very young, early Paul Simon. And Al Stewart would hear him as he worked out songs like Homeward Bound and The Boxer, and was there for all of that. Before that, when he was in Scotland still, he got wind of Bob Dylan and heard Bob Dylan, and it changed his world like it did so many other young musicians at the time. And he knew that he had to go to London to do his thing. And he wanted to be a rock and roller. Skiffle was the name of the game, and Cliff Richards and those type of guys, the Shadows, and that, that type of guitar, that type of thing. That's what he wanted to do. And he went and tried out with, I think he said 6 or 7 different bands within a period of a couple of days, only 2 of which he really, really wanted to be in a band with. And of course, they turned him down flat. And the ones that were interested in him, he wasn't really interested in. And so, in exasperation, he heads down the the high road, the main street, to go into a pub to have a beer. Puts his guitar case down, and the owner of the pub comes up and says, "Are you a folk singer?" And Al Stewart says, "Well, of course I am." And he's like, "Great, can you play tonight?" And the next thing you know, Jed's a millionaire, and Al gets up and does a little set of the couple of Bob Dylan covers that he knows and a couple of his own numbers. And the next thing you know, Al Stewart has started on this journey, and it's a great one. And I think at one point in time, maybe they tried to groom him as England's version of Bob Dylan a little bit. He got a recording contract, put out 3 or 4 great records, some better than others, that were released over there but never released here in the U.S. And then finally, came out with a couple of records that were released in the U.S. to a decent audience, I guess. But then Year the Cat exploded, and the next thing you know, there's Al Stewart. And so there for a few years, I loved Al Stewart. And later on, as my taste changed and I got into music a little heavier and a little proggier and a little jazzier and different types of genres, I kind of forgot about Al Stewart. But these are 5 records that I've come back to over the years many, 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 many times. They deliver, and so we're going to spotlight those today. And of course, the first one is Past, Present, and Future. Um, I remember several of my buddies and seeing this around in different households. So I guess he wasn't that well known, a secret. Um, I guess I kind of mean the opposite of that. But this album to me is absolutely fantastic. Now the first album that I bought was Year of the Cat, but then I worked my way back from there. And so chronologically, this is number 1 of the 5 that I want to talk about. But this has Old Admirals, and so that's what Al Stewart does so well. Is along the way studying and watching under Bert Jansch and a lot of other great English musicians and developing a style of his own, um, became adept at writing these story songs, Old Admirals, and he's always going to mention people that you've heard of but don't know anything about, like Warren Gamaliel Harding or something like that. But it was always interesting to me, and top to bottom, this is Old Admirals, Warren Harding, Soho, needless to say, The Last Day of June 1934, Post-World War II Blues, Roads to Moscow, Starts Outside too. Roads to Moscow is fantastic. Of course, it's a, I think, 6 or 7 minute long song about the Polish invasion by Moscow. And it's a story song, and it's absolutely fantastic. The guitar on it is beautiful. The Spanish guitar is absolutely beautiful. Produced by Alan Parsons, I believe. I believe Alan got on board about this time. So I mean, that's no slouch, man. I mean, Alan Parsons at this point in time was fresh on the heels of producing Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. So, pretty big deal production wise. This was distributed over in the States by Janus Records. But anyway, side 2, Terminal Eyes, which is the little song between Roads to Moscow and Nostradamus, which is another one of those fantastic story songs. That actually is 9 minutes and 46 seconds long, and the arrangement is wonderful. The guitar playing is superb. The singing is superb. That's another thing about Al Stewart, the way he sings, being from Scotland. He's got a softer voice, a little bit more of a nasal voice, but the way that he sings and tells his stories and his songs fits the songs perfectly. So, number 1, Past, Present, Future, came out in '74. Fantastic record. Number 2, and I think probably slightly more accessible, this is Modern Times, came out in '75, and it's a wonderful record as well, for several different reasons. So it starts off with Carol, Sirens of Titan, which is a take on the Kurt Vonnegut book of the same name. And I just finished reading that. And I just couldn't believe it. You know, just putting those two things together when you're a teenager, very, very cool. What's Going On, which could have been a David Bowie track, not the one next time. But then again, side two kicks off with the extremely accessible, I think, Apple Cider Reconstitution, The Dark and the Rolling Sea, which is wonderful. And then Modern Times with those seagulls and that spoken word intro. I think this is a fantastic record. And again, the guitar, the sounds are, it's recorded so well in What's Going On. There's a guitar solo that just absolutely beautiful. So, Modern Times, man, takes me back. I would just, put this on, lay on the floor, and just, I knew every word, absolutely every word. Next in this series of records is, of course, the one that we started out talking about, and that would be 1976's Year of the Cat. Everything about it, the cover, Al doesn't look too rock and roll back here, right? He's kind of like a hippie, dapper version of Frank Sinatra, uh, more of a Thomas Wolfe type character, quite dapper, right? Certainly not a rock and roller. So you can see why, at some point in time, I was more into leather and Les Pauls than the Sophisticate. But this cover, I think is brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. This album, I would say, of the five that I'm going to talk about, obviously is my favorite. Starts out with Lord Grenville, which I love. Another one of those characters, historical characters, naval captain. Um, it's all about the sea and that type of thing. But some of the most beautiful songs, On the Border, which is just recorded so well. Such a great song, such a great song. Midas Shadow, which is fantastic with that Yamaha keyboard. Sand in Your Shoes, If It Doesn't Come Naturally, Leave It, which he could slay live. Side twos kicks off with the absolutely gorgeous Flying Sorcery, Broadway Hotel, One Stage Before, and then ends up with Year of the Cat, 6 minute 40, and every drop of it they would play on the radio. Huge hit. Everyone loved it. So, man, that's what was the third record I ever bought. With the success of Year of the Cat, they decided, hey, let's make some of those earlier records accessible. So they came out with this. This is the early years. It's got selected tracks from Love Chronicles, Bedsitter Images, Zero She Flies, and Orange. And it's wonderful too. Let me pop this open real quick. And it's another one that's, it's just really well. I want to mention, I did lose track of Al Stewart, but later on, I somehow came across him and Peter White, the wonderful Peter White, um, doing a solo acoustic duet from some winery, and I downloaded that, and that was fantastic. But I can't underscore the work of Tim Renwick on electric guitar on some of these records, and Peter White. And together, all they're just fantastic guitar. But this is a wonderful record too, and it's not as accessible as these others, but it's still a lot of fun, and you can see why. It's a little bit more Donovan and a little bit less Jerry Rafferty, I guess, is maybe a decent comparison. I don't know. But this is a great record. And then, of course, he followed it up with uh, Time Passages. And, that was another big hit in 1978. But this record also has, what is it, Valentina Way. I love that. Life in Dark Water, A Man for All Seasons. Almost Lucy, The Palace of Versailles, Tomless Skies, Song on the Radio, and End of the Day. And it's a wonderful little record, too. Man, Al Stewart was really, really important to me. I really, really liked his music. and really, really still do. I saw a video, a YouTube video of an interview with him during COVID just a few years back. That sense of humor, that wry wit was still there. He is still playing, he is still singing, he still sounds absolutely fine. And so, hats off, Al Stewart. And everybody else, thanks for hanging. I hope you guys remember these records, or maybe I've made you remember them, or maybe you're intrigued enough to go check them out. But Al Stewart, he's the stuff, man. Really, really good stuff. Y'all, thanks for hanging. Like and subscribe and comment and do all that good stuff. I'd appreciate it. In the meantime, I'll see you next time. All right, take care.